Welcome back to Echoes and Edges, the Broken and Beautiful podcast. The Broken and Beautiful is a collective of healers on the hunt for beauty, meaning, and transformation. I'm Petria, your host for Echoes and Edges and the founder and owner of The Broken and Beautiful. This year, 2026, we're moving under a shared invitation. It's called Rise With Us, Voices That Lead, Stories That Heal. And when we say rise, we don't mean hustle, reinvention, or becoming someone shinier. We mean waking up, coming home to yourself, and then slowly, awkwardly, and honestly learning how to bring that self into relationship. And today we're talking about what happens during and after that awakening, to whatever degree that's happening, after the old roles start loosening up and familiar patterns stop working, but not also feeling fully grounded or certain of the steps that you're now taking or the direction that you're going. And this in-between space can be really disorienting. And it can also be really strangely quiet, especially in relationships. And it certainly is unpracticed. And so when we go from old roles to new ways of understanding ourselves and ourselves in relationship, there's just a liminal space. It's different, it's unpracticed, and it's a threshold, and it can be really unsettling. And we're going to bring in the Enneagram today and talk about the Enneagram and relationships and how this shows up, how this liminal space can be helped or exposed or just amplified to some degree, hopefully for the better, by the Enneagram. And no matter the Enneagram type, this space often feels lonely or just challenging in some other way, not because it's being done wrong, but because transformation is an interior process. It's an inside job, as some would call it. It's something that has to happen inside before it can even become relational. When we reconnect to ourselves, relationships do tend to feel it immediately. And it can be like just a sense of something changing, or communication can change altogether. There can be boundaries sharpening or confusion growing. It can also bring a deepening of emotional presence, even when it's uncomfortable. But the idea is in this liminal space, when we can learn to pause instead of fix and name discomfort instead of just trying to quickly smooth it over, it can help in the shift, and it can help settle these unsettled feelings that actually can take us into a repair or an experience of the relationship in a different way and negotiate connection in new ways. So today we are doing a roundtable, and I'm joined by my husband, Jerry, who some of you will recognize from the Double Type 9 episode that we did. And also, I'm just so delighted, and my heart just flipped because I'm so happy that you're here. And if you could have seen the last 40 minutes, 50 have been spent just trying to negotiate this recording. So we're doubly thrilled that Steve and Julie McClay stayed with it and are here. And welcome, Steve and Julie. We're so happy to have you.
Yeah, it's good to be here with you. I love that you said that reconnecting to self, because as I'm coming to introduce myself, I feel like I'm in that slow, awkward, honest space of like, who am I again? What am I doing? What I do presently is I'm the partner to Steve. We've been together since 1987. So we've basically grown up together over the last 40 years. We've been married, I think, 33 of those. So we're coming into this space. I am waking up, or I've woken up to myself being a self-preservation Enneagram 4. So that was within the last 5 years, I would say, has been that process. What I do, I've done a lot of things, and I'm still trying to find the ones that are authentic to me. So I'm an artist, I'm a writer, I'm a musician, but I'm also exploring that I'm an athlete. In 2024, I started running. So I would call myself a runner. I also have a coaching business, Heart Path Story Coaching, where I help individuals listen to their words, lean into their stories, learn from what they discover about themselves, and then use that to create beauty with their lives. And I do that with the full support and encouragement of my partner here, who has, helped me along and encouraged me to do that space. And so, yeah, that's what I do. And I'm happy to be here and sitting at this round table with you.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. And it's so fun to be here together because you and I are the connecting link in this group of 4 people because of our narrative focused trauma care, or in those olden days called certificate training. I think it was still called at that
Yes.
time in 2016 at the Allender Center. And we connected in group, small group, and have stayed connected ever since. And it's just been a real gift. So this recording is just another way of getting to know each other over this decade of knowing one another. But Julie, I consider Julie a sister. In fact, on my group texting names, you and Laura are Seattle sisters. I don't know if you guys have that too,
Yes,
but
mine
that's what I
too.
have too. Yeah.
Yes, that's how
Yeah.
I refer to you, when my Seattle sisters.
Yeah. Such a gift. So really excited. And then Steve, the partner of Julie, um, tell us about yourself.
Yes, I am Steve, and I'm really glad to be here with Petria, you, and Jerry. And nice to meet you, Jerry. So I work in sales for a roofing company, Valley Roofing and Exteriors in Virginia. And I also like to do improv comedy. I'm part of a troupe here for the last 15 years. And the last 2 years, I've been practicing jujitsu, which is great for an aging body. It's a good body workout to be underneath somebody that weighs 280
Oh my
pounds
gosh.
in his 30s. So trying to get out from underneath most of the time. So yeah. I'm a 4, by the way. I'm sorry. I'm a 2. So I'm a 2 on the end.
Yeah. So 2s and
Over
4s
here.
are in both in the heart
So
type. So the Enneagram has the body triad, the heart triad, and the head triad. Jerry and I are both, we're double 9s in the gut triad or the body triad. And Steve and Julie, you are 2 and 4. So you're both in the heart triad. And so we come with some dynamics that probably overlap as couples, like in the sense of maybe we share some blind spots. Maybe we're also just understand each other a little bit better than other types that are very, very opposite from each other, very different. But just as you think about your Enneagram journey, let's call it that, and Jerry, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself just a little bit after this, so stay tuned for that. But Julie and Steve, your Enneagram journey, if you could like sum up in one sentence what it's been like for each of you, what would you say? I didn't prep you for this question, so don't worry.
Oh, I would say just trying to find that authentic space of who am I? Who am I really?
what am I summing up in one sentence? Like what the Enneagram journey's been? Well, like, another typing or another personality typing thing. But I feel like it's better than other typing systems and feels more true.
Well, so Jerry, tell us about yourself a little bit, and what would you want listeners to know about you other than we are partners? And so Julie and Steve, 1987, we're 1991 is when we got together. So we're about the same vintage. But so we'll put that down. Yeah.
I'm happy to be your partner for all of these years, and we've had 2 kids together that are grown up, and I'm a family practice physician and spend a fair amount of time doing that. But boy, I love being outside. I love playing golf and climbing mountains and mountain biking and relatively shy, even though I'm a social nine. I don't love social situations necessarily in measured quantities, I guess, but I really like um, people that I know and like new conversations too with folks I don't know, like Julie and Steve. So
Yeah.
uh, this is
Yeah.
really
I would say
enjoyable
that that's very
from
true.
that
And in
standpoint.
fact, when we've lost you, like when we're on vacation or somewhere and we've lost you, we just all know you're over talking to someone new. That so it's funny to hear you say you're shy. I've never heard you say that before. So I'm learning something new about you today. Well, okay, so let's dive into this whole relationships thing and liminal space. And yes, we are framing this in terms of the Enneagram, but please feel free to just talk about what makes sense to you in terms of relationship and that movement from what's been familiar to maybe doing things differently or just the necessary things like having kids or real life brings that cause us to either grow or get be pretty uncomfortable. What does it feel like after letting go of old roles? Like, or have you? Do you resonate with that language first of all? And anybody can jump in here. Do you resonate with the idea of letting go of old roles, or do you feel like you're still doubled down in your old roles?
Thankfully, we're not doubled down on our old roles.
I just didn't want to
We
make
probably
any
wouldn't be here
assumptions.
doing this together. And
Hmm.
yeah, when you say liminal space, you mean like kind of realizing, oh, there's a different way to look at things, and it's disconcerting because
Yeah, and that
it's
space between like recognizing.
okay.
So, like as an Enneagram 9, I recognized I've been asleep to myself, right? There are many things, but it's an oh crap moment essentially where or season. And so the liminal space would be between that moment of recognition and then seeing how the things that say are bothering me or I don't like about the relationship might be actually some to do with me, and and the unsettledness that comes in that.
Well, I would say for me, it felt kind of disconcerting. It feels unsettling, destabilizing, because there were roles that were taken on, like traditional, the way you're raised to have the traditional Christian female role in those. And so as we just moving towards what is more authentic or what is more of being on the same team or using my voice instead of just absorbing, taking in and kind of looking and seeing what I need to do, how do I need to show up, but actually showing up truly as like what is true inside of me with the life that you've already, the big messy life that you've already created, that you're looking around going, oh wow, this is all here.
So well said.
And so
Yeah.
it's just kind of trying to find new ground. Like it's like coming out, you're stepping out and there's a new terrain and you're trying to figure out how to navigate it.
Yeah.
I don't think the Enneagram was a starting point for me as far as letting go of old roles. It was more of like something that came later that gave language to how I operate as a person. And then the added language of, oh, Julie's a 4. This is it helps us to function better together. But as far as like the Enneagram didn't cause a liminal space for me. It was more of like therapy and um, was what caused that liminal space for me. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really thank I appreciate you saying that. So once you came to the Enneagram, Steve, you had really been doing quite a bit of work relationally and
For years. Yeah.
interpersonally and relationally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying the Enneagram came along as a tool to help amplify the work you were already doing, which I think is such a great point.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
Right. So I can bring in like the whole Steve being a 2, which also made it so as a 2, he was like always very like helpful, almost like anticipatory, almost like so to a degree, what made it disruptive for me when he started doing his own work as a two and realizing, oh, he is now aware that he has needs and he has things. I wasn't the one that was just always getting everything, because it
Mm-hmm.
felt like for a long time I was just like getting, because if something needed to be done, he would drop and do if something needed to
Yeah.
be done. And so that's where it was probably more disruptive on my end when he
Mm.
started using his two-ness for himself for himself and being aware that, like, oh wait, I have this yeah, if that does that make sense?
Completely. We just had a friend over at our house a couple nights ago that is a two. He's a two, she's a four. His partner is a four as well. And he was joking. They've been using the Enneagram for years and years. And he was joking that he's a two and he adores her, and that works really well for her, is the way that he said it, you know. So that's coming to my mind as
Yes.
you're talking about, like, some of those dynamics shift a little bit. And that's a perfect example, I would say, of what I'm of getting at, where I would guess Steve still adores you, you know, and also I,
Absolutely.
you will have to answer that question. But whatever that is like for you, something shifted, and also as a four, that would really disrupt the heart, you know, to have that shift happening, I would imagine.
Yeah, and it's so, I think what's been so helpful with that language of just, for me, the Enneagram language is helpful because the four has that line to two as well. And that's almost where I had to live for a long time, because I also had to help, because I was supposed to be the helper, right? Like that's the role. But he's helping me try to help him. And it feels like it made this like spiral
Uh-huh.
that was not helpful at all.
It reminds me of Jerry and I, as double nines are also very helpful. So nines are very helpful, right? Just for different reasons. And especially in our early days, we would conk heads all the time, literally physically conk heads all the time. And I couldn't figure out why. And actually, it sounds so funny to say the Enneagram helped me figure out why, because when something dropped, we were both diving to solve that, you know, to help each other, and we would conk heads all the time. So now we've both paused before we lean down to pick something up so that we don't conk heads. But Jerry, what are your thoughts? What would you say about that liminal space, you know, and what that's been like for you? And like Steve said, it might not be the Enneagram that opened that door for you, but just maybe amplified.
Yeah, Steve, when you brought up that something else had started the process, I can certainly relate to that. I think a couple of stages, um, but one, if you remember, Petria, was attachment styles. You had brought to me, um, a thing on attachment styles, and as I started just seeing the descriptions that so resonated with me, and realized that it was perfectly normal and acceptable that other people could be attached in different ways from me, but that there was a whole group that were attached in the same way that I was, and that it was explainable and it was reasonable. That made a lot of sense to me, and that then gave me a framework, I think, of understanding um, for the Enneagram in a way that other personality profiles just maybe hadn't landed. Uh, so again, I guess I would just emphasize how surprised I think I was that there are these other ways of living in the world that were perfectly good and reasonable, and that I didn't have to partake in all of those, that I could just be me. I don't know how this translated externally. Maybe you could observe that, but internally, that I just became a lot more comfortable. Had a lot less internal anxiety about what I should do, what was good to do. Maybe, um, you know, maybe that's my one wing or something, but um, did spend a lot of time trying to be good, trying to be palatable, palatable to other people. And
Mm-hmm. So I think too, just kind of in that shifting, where this recognition, whether it's, Enneagram is an amplification, or it's a new thing, or it's an addition to other things, but it's continuing to sort of show that there are different ways of being in the world. And I do think that that's one of the things about the Enneagram that I do love, is that it's basically 9 lenses, and you bring in attachment styles and stories, and then you start really seeing that so much of conflict, like true, I might even go so far as to say war, can get caused by projections and reactions to the projections. Yeah, so just like recognizing that, understanding that not everybody is seeing something the same way as I am is really helpful. And I would say that for me, that's a huge part of what has continued to happen. I mean, it's not like, I wouldn't say I've arrived. I don't know if you guys would say you've arrived, but that's just kind of the continued space that I find myself in. Just talk about whether it was those earlier years when you started growing. Jerry and I really didn't start working on our relationship really a lot until probably about the time I came to Allender Center. Maybe some before that, but we just didn't have time. I mean, between school and then my little brother's brain injury accident, and that took a whole decade out of our lives essentially. And then, all of the other things that came after that, I don't think we really started until then. But so wherever that started for you guys, what was that like? I mean, what happened? Tell the story a little bit, if you would be willing to.
Do you want me to talk, or you want to talk, Jay?
I was just going to say, I would love if you want to talk. Go ahead.
Okay. So
From your perspective.
Yeah.
I think we were in our later 30s, 36, 37. And we started going to a church that had a actual licensed therapist on the pastoral staff, and you could get free counseling. So I called and asked if we could get counseling, and suggested it to Julie, and we started going to counseling. And I was like, finally, Julie's getting the help that she needs.
Seriously. Is that what happened? Or are you joking?
I'm serious.
You're serious.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was like, oh, Julie really needs help, and now we're getting this help. And Jay, please interrupt if and then I think we had been going for quite a while, and Julie was unable to make a session. So I went by myself, and I mentioned to the counselor, I was like, I forget if he asked me what I wanted to talk about, and I was like, oh man, I just hate the fucking cat. I just want to, like, if it gets on the dining room table, I just want to kill it. He's like, oh, let's talk about that, so that was kind of like the open door for like, oh, I've got issues too. I mean, it's not like I didn't know I had issues, but it was much more of, where does that anger come from? You're operating on, if there's a dial and rage is all the way over here in the red, you're operating at angry all the time, and you can easily go to rage. And it stems, then we started digging into my past, childhood sexual abuse, that came out that I wasn't aware of, or that it was abuse. And then, so we kind of have been working on separate paths at that point. Julie, would you say? Or we've done a lot of work separately?
Right. Well, I mean, that was the starting point, right? And so then you started doing your work. But I guess this is where we do have to bring in like what our big messy piece was about that time in our life was, here we are. I think I liken it to, I think we were married 17 years. That was probably year 17. And we had 7 children.
Yeah.
And that is really what pushed us. So I would say for us, the impetus was our children, like pushing us through as what we were doing wasn't working, like how we were parenting, how we were showing up, how like the need to have like control. You cannot control.
Totally. Yeah.
And yet, and so there was a lot of fallout there. So here we are now, and we're starting to do work, but we have these kids that have been raised in this home where we hadn't done, where they had a different experience of us. So I would say that where Steve's tuneness comes into play is he went away to do a week of intensive work, which was literally the first time I had been alone with all the kids. Like I had taken plenty of trips where he had been alone, but this was my first time. And so that just even shows that need for him to have time for himself to do his own stuff. So that's just so that is very true. And that is where our work began. For me, I would say when I turned 40, that was like a pivotal year. I started doing, digging into my story more and doing some work. And for Steve, it was about that time too, when you were doing your work. But yeah, it was definitely on
it's
separate
been an
paths.
ongoing process. So to give context, that was like when I was 36, 37, and I went to 2 recovery weeks at the Allender out in Seattle. But I'm 55 now, and so it's been a lot of time and a lot of therapy, and especially working with my therapist now, Lori Proctor at counseling and doing inner family system work.
Beautiful.
It's been great. And then like when you get to, there's times when it's like, man, is this really helping? It's taking so long. But then something will happen, whether it's an interaction with our 19-year-old or at Thanksgiving, an interaction with my brother where he blew up and I was able to regulate myself and change everything around. It's like, oh yeah, it really does work. I'm a different person than I was 5 years ago. And then like the Enneagram, giving language to, because I operated as an 8 for many years, kind of like a forced, because I was in a leadership role. I was trying to imitate really unhealthy leadership styles, and I was forcing myself into being an 8 for decades. Would you say, Julie?
Wow.
Right.
So and I can still operate as an 8 if I need to. I can take charge of a situation if it needs to happen, but it's much more thoughtful, kind way. But I'm happy to operate as a 2 and just be helping people. I'd rather be doing that. Yeah. So I can usually be really good with the person that's leading, like anticipating what they need and helping and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, that, and just for the sake of reminder to all of us and anybody who might listen to this, is that 2s have a line to 8 and 4. And so there is this interplay between 2, 4, and 8 that comes to play for a type 2 that can be very intense. That's the word I would use. It can be very intense. And obviously I haven't experienced you in that space, but it sounds like a stressed space, if we're going to use the word of just like, and this is true for all of us, is that we use what's at our capacity, what's at the ready, what we have access to. We use what's accessible to us to survive. And it sounds, Steve, like one of the things that you had access to is like taking charge and being enraged. Those were ways that helped you function until it didn't.
Correct. Yeah. And it's kind of like, and I don't know, it would almost be because I was in a leadership role or because I'm helping, people would look at me like, what do we do next? Or I can just think of a time when we're at that church we were at, somebody faints, and I'm over like, everybody's kind of standing around looking at each other, but I jump in and like, hey, what do you, and then people are like looking at me for medical advice. Like there's a doctor 2 doors down in Sunday school, go get him. It's like,
Do you have that experience a lot? Does that happen to you a lot?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just because I'm an older white male that people look and think I'm in charge or what, but I
Hmm.
try to, and I do hang back and like, hey, somebody else take charge, or because I want to give people space to do that. But if somebody needs to lead, I will. And
Hmm.
now I can do it. It's like I don't need to. I know what I'm doing if I'm doing it. Well, I can lead here, and I can do it.
That's really interesting. Thank you. Those are pieces. Those are dynamics, especially I think of a social two. Are you a social two? Have you decided what your subtype is? Because Julie, you mentioned self-pres 4.
Well, that displays my. I haven't dived in to find my subtype
Sure.
yet, but we were talking about it the other day, and we think it's
Uh,
probably a social too. Yeah.
it sounds very social two-ish, and social. It's not to say this is the like you'd have to kind of just do the deep dive, of course, yourself, but that aspect of eightishness and kind of the being able to operate in that leadership role, or kind of being pulled into leadership places like that, or just people looking to you, that feels very social too to me. And then of course you put on the other layers, like you mentioned, you're white and you're male, and that might just automatically kind of put you in those places. So what has that been like for you, Julie? Just out of curiosity. And Jerry, I want to hear from you too. I'm just so interested in this dynamic, and so
So,
we'll
Petria,
jump
what
into
aspect? What has what been like? Just the
what has that, like, yeah, the shifts in Steve, because you've known him for so long,
right.
so right, there was a way, and then
Yes.
there's this other kind of emerging way. So yeah.
One thing is that I just have to remind myself is that at the beginning, there really was something there with us. Like that was a connecting point that was authentic and real and genuine.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels like it got skewed along the path in the different systems we were in, and external expectations put on. Because as he
Yeah.
was describing that 8 role, I would say I was like shoved up into that helper role of like, it's
Yes.
my job to follow him and help
Yeah.
facilitate. And it just felt like living not really in my own body even. And so there's just a lot there. So as we were as we're coming into like a more authentic place, I think for me it is holding the goodness and also the grief, right, of the harm we've caused, like, or the harmful things that have happened, like in our home, and how, and again, the more we've done the work, the more capacity for repair, the more honesty can come out from people. um, but as far as how we've experienced, or how I experienced that, I think I was just so disconnected from myself,
Mm.
which makes me very sad
Mm-hmm.
as a 4, like
Yeah.
as you're,
Yeah.
um, I probably was living in that like idealizing space, or like that trying to like set things up a certain way. I do appreciate how succinctly he was able to describe, just sum up that season. And even another thing I appreciate, this is going to come to like also my 4ness when we're talking about the depth, like you want to be in that depth and you want to really be understood. And one of the kind things he's been doing with me, I pulled out my journal from 5 years ago, which was kind of a pivotal year. It was the year my mom was sick, and she was going through stuff. And I've just been reading. He's been like, we will read like the daily thing, what was happening. And just noticing even then the work he's done since then to be able to be even more fully present without, I would say, pitching off the cliff of despair. Like
Mm-hmm.
there would have been a time when, like, if I even deigned to suggest that he might not understand something I'm going through, it would feel like pitching off the cliff of despair. So I would
Mm.
hold back because I didn't want that to happen.
That's
Yeah.
So
hard
he's
for us
able.
to hear, like that you're not able to help the person that you care about the most. Like,
Yeah.
but sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, but just saying, like,
So
or
good.
if I would feel like if I even let a tiny valve of like what was really going on inside of me and see his reaction, I'd be like, oh man, that you don't even know. But so even in the last 5 years, he's been able to be with me and understand, like, oh wow, yeah, I see that. And I feel more connection instead
Yeah.
of like just being on a list of things he's trying to do to connect with me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just thinking about the exponential overlay, things overlaying that are again causing. There's so many different things that came to play here because Julie, you mentioned the sort of you didn't say submissive wife, but so forgive me if I bring in things I know about you. So please
Yeah.
correct me if I say something you don't want said, for sure. But I'm just thinking about that religious background, right? That
Mm-hmm.
traditional religious background where this is your role and this is your role.
Yeah.
And so when Steve is sharing that he kind of gets tagged as a leader or as very strong in presence, but as a 4 you want to be seen and understood, that, and also you're tucked, you said, you're tucked, for people that are just listening, like Julie showed an image of her just like tucking herself way up and away and it's sort of out of the picture almost. And I just think of the pressure cooker that is, that would have to be for a couple, And so it comes to that place where I was thinking about that too in the shame spirals. And you said the cliff of despair, which, anytime I think that this is also a white male thing, and you white males can also talk about this, but that sort of hero complex, like Jerry and I have talked about our backgrounds as being he's the hero, I'm the damsel in distress, but we don't, by personality, we're not actually that way. So we really had to stuff ourselves into that role quite a bit. And so I can really relate, Julie, to what you're talking about, where I felt like if I just said I was discontent about one thing, or I saw one thing that was out of place or imperfect, I was critical, and I'm not even saying Jerry called me that. It's just that was the value system that we were used to or that we'd been raised in I would be a critical woman. I'd be a nagging wife, kind of thing. So Jerry, what are your thoughts as you're sitting there listening and feel free to ask Steve and Julie questions too. I'm just curious what is kind of rolling around for you as we're talking, because I'm having some things roll around about our relationship as they're talking.
Thinking about dynamics and how they shifted and changed, and I think the thing that comes to mind the most is how much I assumed and projected stuff on you that I thought I knew you and what you were thinking and what you were expecting and what you were wanting and what you were feeling, and I wasn't nearly curious enough to ask you or to believe when you shared. I felt like my assessment somehow carried more weight, and I wasn't convinced that you were okay when you said you were okay. I don't know if this is so much a 9 thing or just just my family of origin wounding, but I'm so much a manager, and I had spent and continue to war with the impulse to spend time trying to manage you and your well-being rather than turn that over to you, and so backing off from that management then just makes me uncomfortable all the time because uh, I felt pretty good managing those things. At least I had something to do, and in the absence of that, then yeah, it's a surprising amount of work to just be comfortable with my own things. I'm turn that back to you then and ask you, what have
Yeah,
you noticed
definitely.
that I manage you less, and what's
Most of
that
the
like
time
for
it's
you?
great, but every now and then it's like, dadgummit, there was a time when um that would have just solved a lot easier, or something. I don't know. I think it stirs up my own shame, probably. If I'm kind of thinking out loud, but it's probably that, because it's very disorienting to me. And I do have in my story, I have a theme of just not being asked questions. I'm just missed. That is very much a theme in my story where there's an assumption about me. And I have a big melancholy streak, so like even coming into the Enneagram, it was kind of assumed I was a 4, like we talked about, because I have this big, deep melancholy streak. But on the inside, well, and I do like to make meaning a lot, but that streak of just being missed, that rather than misunderstood, is probably more, well, it is. It's more true for me. But also because I'm extremely adaptable. I've come to understand that my adaptations are so fast. It's like a clicker, like a dial. I can just click, 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 click around really and become anything I need. And so putting those two pieces together and recognizing that now as an adult, it's mine to say when I'm not well with something, I need to express myself. It's not just about being missed. Like in this case where you're talking about managing me, I had to start saying, I'm not well with what you're doing here. And that to this day is the hardest thing for me to do. It's the hardest thing for me to say, I'm angry at you. I don't like what you just did, because like Julie, like you mentioned, it feels like we're going to head off the cliff of despair. And there was a time, unless I misread everything, that it feels like the shame spiral would have taken over. And so I that was a long answer, but those are the thoughts that are coming to my mind in response.
It's kind of a mantra for you and me. It has been that to just put words to that, whatever this thing, it's not fatal or final, but that cliff. I certainly remember sometimes, really, when we started this 10 to 15 years ago, probably 15, truly, that where I wondered, yeah, if this was going to be fatal to our relationship or to our happiness. I didn't ever think that we were separating per se, but it just felt like we were getting less and less happy as we were in uncharted territory, and I didn't know what to do with
I'm
that.
seeing Steve and Julie nodding. Wonder if you're relating to that. Yeah.
Speaking of separation, where Julie, what did you want
No,
to say?
you go ahead. Go ahead. I'd like to hear what you have to say, and then I'll chime in.
Well, what was crossing my mind, Jerry, when you were talking about managing, I think having a better understanding of me being a 2 and Julie being a 4, I do love to be there and help Julie. And you want to talk about a streak of melancholy? No. Anyways,
Julie's
No,
like, what?
you're allowed to share your experience.
Melancholy's in the room here somewhere. Where Julie's office. So I can understand that better, and it's I don't have to fix it. I can be with Julie in the melancholy, and it's okay. And there's also the piece of it, we've been in the melancholy for 45 minutes or an hour, and it's not necessarily going to change, so I need to get up and go do something else, and it's okay to, I feel like before I might have been like, I got to stay and try to resolve this or wait till it's passed. It's like, well, it's not really going to pass, and that's okay, and we can move on to something else. How does that resonate with you, Julie?
No, I think it does resonate, because it also, as you were saying, Petria, the part of having to take ownership. I think I heard you saying that, like, where all of a sudden it's like, someone else isn't there trying to figure, this is mine. And so it allows, or even having Steve be aware that I know he sees me, and we can come back to this, or we can just name that this is in the room. Yeah. And I won't be left alone in it. But right now we can't, I think that's where Steve's humor is fun. I'm picturing the time where I'm trying to think of
Well, I
what
think
happened.
I was going to be leaving, and what are you talking about? What I'm talking about, or
Maybe go ahead. I feel like we are
well, I was going to be leaving, and I brought up something with world, like the world state of politics,
Uh-huh.
and it was a heavy subject. But for me, it was like, oh, I just was thinking about
oh,
this, and now I'm going to be leaving, and then I realized like Julie's over there, and I was like, oh, is this terrible for the two to swirl up the cloud, like to
Yes.
swirl up a big whirlwind to leave over the four's head as he's walking out the door.
Mm.
and the acknowledgement, because again, as a 4, it's easy for me to get hooked right into the past. Like I will get hooked into the past, and it'll become this weight of all of my hopes and dreams and expectations, and like it can happen in a second. And so but it was helpful for him to see that was happening. And it wasn't in a minimizing or like a mocking way. We were both able to kind of like laugh, like, oh yes, this happened. He was acknowledging his part. And also that we would circle back and like connect about it later. And I wasn't left alone. Because sometimes it would feel like,
Yeah.
that there will never be enough time in the whole world to ever
Yes.
plumb the depths.
Yes.
And we can make time for that, so that's
Yeah.
helped. I think of it too as just understanding, like Steve can be like, okay, we need to take care of this, we need to make a decision about this. I liken it like we need to look at the money. That's always was a huge like, oh, we need to look at the money, and that would immediately like hook me back into like every story we've ever had about the money and all of the things. And he's just like, can't we just right now just look and see where the money is today and try? And I'm like, oh, this reminds me of when we were in Gadsden Street and I'm in the kitchen and I'm standing there thinking, we're never going to have it. It's going to always. And he's just like, I just want to know where we want to allocate these things in the budgeting app. So could we just sit down for 10 minutes and do that? And,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
once we had that language, it didn't feel like there was something wrong with me or that there was like
Right.
a fight to have. It's just like, oh yeah, Julie, you're doing this thing and this is true and you can tend those stories, but right now let's just look at the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does help us to have that understanding of each other, because like if we're going to watch a movie and Julie realizes, oh, this was filmed in 2002, and then she remembers what age she was at that point and how old the kids were at that age, and we have to pause for a moment. I'm just like, hey, this is fun, let's watch a movie, and Julie's remembering all the feels that come with that time period or whatever. And but now I can understand, it's like it's okay, or at some
Mhm.
point if we're watching a romantic movie, Julie's always going to ask the question, do you notice what's missing from this movie?
Oh,
And I
really?
I used to try to come up with, oh, I don't see any this or that, but it's they don't never there's never kids involved, or almost never. Or if they are, they walk onto the scene then walk off, and of course that hits
That is
Julie hard.
such
Yeah,
a good point, though.
and it hits you, Julie, I think in a more weighty way because of our story and the amount of children that we have.
Right. Cause like there's this
Yeah.
conflict, like they're going through this whole thing and that's
Yeah.
true. And also they're, yeah, not that
They
I'm
can just
also,
focus on their conflict, and
Yeah.
yeah.
and
Oh,
also
I'm
noticing what's
hearing
missing.
I'm hearing so many things, and what in that like, but I was thinking what a great point that is, because conflict between two people like is more manageable than conflict between four people, and conflict caused by one of the offspring of the two people. So I mean, it's just like that makes so much sense to me, and I just really appreciate the vulnerability of the sharing, and just like the realness, just the authenticity of what you're sharing, because it's so relatable. It's so true, at least it is in my experience of us, Jerry. I don't know what I'm seeing you thinking, so I'm really curious where you are, but what are your thoughts? Yeah.
It just is. It is real. It's so real life to you know when one person is ready to talk budget and the other isn't, and eventually you have to have the or you end up having the conversation. But I was just thinking
Hmm.
how we each bring so much in our backgrounds to a conversation like that, or our roles. you and I were raised in a system where I was supposed to ultimately make the decisions about money. That was just sort of the man's thing to do, the head of the household, whatever that meant, and I was supposed to take some input from you and be respectful, but ultimately, it was a one vote. I would cast my vote,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we would do. That's how it was supposed to do. That
Mm-hmm.
just didn't work. And I don't think that's ever really how we lived our life, but it was somewhat how we were trying to live our life. But I love the example of the budget talk, and that's got to translate to
Mm-hmm.
so many other things like parenting and like belief, what do I believe about God, and what role does church have to play,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and many other things.
I recognize that we are way off talking points, and it is so much better this way. Like, I'm just enjoying this conversation so much, and really the budget conversation. I mean, like, my mind went to like 15 different memories, of exactly that kind of scenario. It's a little bit reversed for us, even, so I was thinking about how, well, so I'm gonna throw myself under the bus a little bit here, because I'm really not super like, I don't know, is airheaded an appropriate word to use anymore? I don't know, but I'm pretty conscious, and I've probably always been pretty conscious. But when we got married, I really did not understand math very well at all. And I thought one day, just completely I think it truly was a dissociative moment, if I'm honest. But it was a moment where I wrote a check, and I just thought, if I wrote the check, it's what I needed. And there wasn't money in the account for the check. And so it so sent me spiraling that I just couldn't do budget stuff forever. I really still don't do much with the budget, except for thumbs up and thumbs down and all that stuff. But finances are such a big point of understanding, or trying to understand how our roles come to play, and can create big problems. Or, on the other hand, can create really big repair if the shame doesn't have to take us out. And I wanted to just mention about humor, because you guys brought that up, Steve and Julie, about humor. And in that moment, Steve, that you walked out of the room and you had a recognition, and said it, and how helpful it is to just laugh in moments that are so, hard, or maybe a reiteration of pain. But also, it made me think about how naming something disarms it too. Just naming what it is. Like, this is the thing that's happening. I'm terrible at fractions. So, like, I've always been terrible at whatever it is. And we're taking ourselves really seriously, or whatever that is.
Well, I think anytime you can have better language for something or get it out of your head, that was another thing when we realized, again, when you're raised in these systems where the man has the final say, we realized there were a lot of times when Steve was thinking through a decision and making a decision that I'm, quote, agreeing with, but we never talked about it. And so it was like, so even just coming to that stage where it's like, wait a second, what do you mean we talked about this? We did not talk about this. And then if you're also taking into effect the different ways that brains work separate from the Enneagram, because we have our other ways that our brains are working.
Yes.
And it just brings, I think for us, the safety and being able to say it without the other person, without me having to caretake his feelings and worry, and without him being able to handle my big feelings that come up. I think those are just thoughts that
and the linking of memories, right? So that's very much a thing that forced you, is that every memory links to another memory in the past, and it just goes endlessly on, and that won't ever stop. That is a gift, actually. So as we kind of start wrapping things up a little bit, and talking, towards an end of this particular time together, although this is so fun. I could talk all night, but we won't, I won't do that to any of you. But what are the gifts of your types or your growth or whatever makes sense there? What have you found to be gifts in your relationship through your growth process? And maybe if it makes sense to bring the Enneagram in, great.
Well, I would say a gift of Julie, the more thinking about the Enneagram and the linking of times, is that it is a gift to have Julie remember things. It's been a pleasure to have her read through the journal that she kept almost daily during the time when her mom got a diagnosis and then passed away several months later. So holding those spaces and bringing the meaning is a gift. Yeah. And making, like if you look around our house, there's meaning attached to different things that Julie holds, that I get I get the benefit of hearing the meaning as it pops out in conversation, or so that's a real gift and that I get to enjoy. Yeah.
And I would say for Steve, I get to enjoy. So his two-ness means that when he really wants to put himself in a place that's like to volunteer, like when he's in his living in his authenticity, like we started doing this park run event where, we run every Saturday. It's become part of our routine. And he does the director. He volunteers to be like a director position, is one in a rotation. It's not every week, but like he can just do that. I can show up and be like a marshal out on the course in a place I love, where you just get to stand, maybe play some music, make sure everybody's like doing what they need, but I don't have to be like up in front. He brings, or he makes the connections to, volunteer. We got to volunteer at a music festival this year because of a connection that he made. And like, he puts himself out there, and then I get to come along with that to the degree that feels like comfortable and safe to me. So I get to be part of that, but I don't have to manage, or I think that's a big piece. And then as he's become more aware of the weight, that emotional labor that I've carried throughout our marriage and like with parenting and all, that's made him more aware. And he's channeled that two-ness into finding ways that we split that, or where he takes on, like currently he does the cooking and the laundry is like his card. And we have other things, but we sit and like have divided up things. I just feel like he's had more ability to kind of see me and what I've carried and kind of being in with me. And also, both of us together having to hold like the grief of places where we've dropped the ball, let's say with our parenting, with our kids, but also the joy of being able to hold repair and see our family, grow and become more real. That's a thing. When you become safer for yourself, then it makes it safer for other people to bring things to you that aren't exactly your favorite thing to hear, but that you now have capacity to hold.
I mean, but what you just said is like, I just want to give that a moment of sacred silence, because A, you've earned the right to say that. And B, most people, myself included, start the journey of growth and healing so that their kids don't have bad experiences, right? And then on the other side of things, or somewhere in the middle, to discover that it's not the, like, that might translate to our kids having better experiences. We certainly want our kids to have the best experiences that we can, but it's so much about waking up to ourselves and growing in awareness in our own experiences that curate something different going forward. And so, what would you say to parents who are desperately wanting to change things for their little kids and they're just working their self ragged trying to change? Like what would you say to parents, you two, that have a lot of experience with kids, raising kids?
Yeah, when you say working themselves ragged, what the parent is working themselves
Yeah,
ragged?
yeah, they're trying to recreate a better experience for their kids, and they're going on these healing things. They're paying money, lots of money, or they're trying to be super religious, or they're trying to do all the things so that their kids never suffer, or that they whatever it is that starts a person on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your kids are already suffering, and really, really,
Yes.
it has to do. I mean, I think it wasn't until we started to really do our own work. I would say the gift of our kids, one of the gifts they gave us was there are a lot of them, but we're able to like see what each age looks like, what each age needs. I would say I started doing my work because my oldest, I felt like she was catching up to me. And it was like, wait
Mm,
a second, who's the adult in the room? Like
mm,
there was
mm-hmm,
those places where I was emotionally stuck. And so I would just say to parents, it's not about like having a new kid by Friday or having
mm,
the first time behavior or like obeying and parenting properly. It's really about healing those parts in you that are being activated
mm,
by, because when we're talking about that spiral, back when we weren't able to just hold the containment bucket
mm-hmm.
and would just jump into the fray and start to
Yeah.
like put out consequences. It's like the work that you do on yourself to grow your capacity does trickle down.
Mm,
And you also, though, have to be comfortable with whatever degree of connection your child
mm.
does or doesn't want with you.
Wow.
And that has to be okay.
No, and having even like the framework of the Enneagram as a two, when our kids have needs or they're suffering, it's hard for me to not want to try to help as much as I can. But knowing myself, I'm able to be like, be present and realize I can't stop that suffering. There's only so much I can do to help, and they have to figure it out on their own, and they will be able to.
Mm,
Oh my goodness, that just brought up a memory too, as far as with so many people on so many different places, like just being aware, like that child, it's not that they're like difficult or don't want to be around you. They're just a five that just needs to go to their room and have space. And so I can
yeah.
even images come to my mind of like Steve, like wanting connection with someone that's like, I don't want connection, right? And that's not personal or wrong
Yes.
or bad. And then that brings up
Yeah.
me as a child, like as a four, it just was not okay to withdraw or to be
Right.
like, separate. That was like wrong. And so it's like
Yeah.
just having that understanding like of how we're wired.
Yeah. That's so true. So good. Thank you for that. Jerry, what would you say? Or I feel like there might be other things that you wanted to say too, but as we're kind of closing here and we're heading towards a closing, what are your lingering thoughts? What parenting thoughts come to your mind?
I know that you and I have used the word superpowers, and how even though you and I inherently from a personality standpoint are pretty similar, we have different giftings for sure. We show up in the world differently, and we've kind of talked around that language of I'm so grateful for your superpowers, or you're able to do some things that I would just be baffled at, and vice versa, that I could bring some things that you weren't really designed to do, and that there was some division, and therefore partnership, and therefore appreciation, and honestly, to my my love and respect for you really amplified as I saw you doing the thing that I couldn't do, and I could get away from my shame in that. Like I instead of thinking, boy, I should be able to do everything, and 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 surely, I to be a complete person, I should bring every skill to this scenario of life, of parenting, and that instead I could just appreciate what you brought to it and continue to bring, and that I didn't have to do as to be as good as you. I could learn some things, I could watch what you did, and in those moments, and maybe try to imitate when you weren't around. Yeah, superpowers, value, the value around, and the appreciation of um, changed me a lot.
I think I'd like to add a little context to that, so much of our parenting has been very up to me because of your schooling and job and just the inability to access, like in residencies, I feel like there were weeks that you worked 70, 80 hours a week or just were gone all the time. And so there are ways I think that I do sort of like pull up my bootstraps and just push through. But for me, I think some of the value of recognizing the shortfalls and the just the realities of being human is that there are times I just don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what a solution is. I don't know what to do here. I don't know how to help. And for, I think for both of us, where we identify with that vow of it's up to me, like it's all up to me. And I don't know, neither one of us are oldest children, but we operate as oldest children in many ways in terms of organization and function and all of those things. And so some of that to me comes to mind in just how healing it has been for me to say I don't know, and to give time, to just let things work out. I remember with one of our kids, there was this season of time where I had done some terrible parenting. I mean, just made some big mistakes. I wouldn't even say it was all my fault per se. I just ended up in a relationship dynamic that was really hard, and it caused some real rupture with my kids. And with one of my kids, there was just no talking. We were not going to be able to talk this through, and just recognizing that what I could do was not know and wait. And I would just sit on the couch with them for, and I just remember telling myself, I'll just sit here I'm just not going to leave. I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay in it when they're ready. If they ever are ready, like you said, Julie, that they might not be, and to respect that this is their life too, and that they're whole people, and that um, they're capable of thinking and processing without my without my help, that they can do their own life. And so anyway, those are things that are all coming to my mind, and I really appreciate this conversation. Again, it went a different direction that I had sort of written down, but it's one of my favorite things about just having a conversation is it just goes where it goes. So before we hang up, though, thank you so much for the time, for your patience, for, speaking of sticking with things. Anything any of you would want to add before we hang up today?
I would say if you're a two out there, sign up to volunteer at a music festival. It's to heaven.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say it made me smile when you said thanks for sticking with it at the beginning, because if I feel like if there's anybody that has been sticking with it, I think we've been sticking with it. But we stick with it with that commitment to renewal. Like with that, I mean, there are times when we've been like, no, it cannot go on like this. No, we are not going to keep going like this. So what are we going to do? So it's just that choice to continue to grow together. So that's what I'll say. And like, it's not like, oh, we've been together for this many years and we're hauling it out for this. Like, that's not what we're interested in. We just we're committed to that deepening growth. And yeah.
I love that you said that. I love that you just said that, because that space of Richard Rohr talks about that place in life of falling upward where you can start doubling down on the things that, you learned that got you here, or you can release your grip. And that's kind of what I hear you saying too, is just like letting that release.
Yeah, only to keep talking, I think, is really any avenue that gets words out. It's, to me, it just slows the internal world of thinking is so spirally and quick and can be disjointed. But when your thoughts come out your mouth, they have to be slowed down to some extent, and then they go back in your ears, and your brain gets to reprocess them again. And when you're doing that with somebody else, good things tend to happen. So whether it's you're talking about the Enneagram, or you're just talking to friends, old friends or new friends, about things like parenting and life, and relationship journeys, that the process of getting words out, it helps me to understand myself, helps me understand you.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-oh. I guess
Much
that
more
was
than
it.
just thinking.
Final word. Now there you are. You must have gotten a message or something. Well, again, thank you so much. And I just really appreciate all three of you showing up today with honesty and authenticity. And I imagine there'll be lots of thoughts that come afterwards. At least for me and Julie, there will be. I don't know about for Steve and.
I'm already in a shame spiral for the things I said.
Oh, seriously?
No, I'm okay.
Right. But
We'll get a beer.
yeah, good. I imagine that's what's on Jerry's.
After I pick our kid up from his job.
Yeah, do that first, then do beer.
Yeah.
And
I
I
think
feel like
that's yeah.
I feel like I also need to say, just in my journal, my journaling, it did document my mom's death, but was there any other significant things that it held, Stephen?
Well, I mean, are you thinking about, there was one point she was reading,
No,
and she almost skipped over something. But what?
Well, that wasn't it. It's your sister.
I love this.
Oh, yeah. Well, now I don't want to leave anybody hanging. The part that she started to skip over was, it was like a phrase at the end of a sentence, and to be with a difficult spouse. And Julie, I was like, no, wait, what were you going to read? Go ahead and read it. And she read that, and I was like, oh, yeah. So it was helpful. But also, yes, were you talking about? Yeah. So
what a joy to hear.
Well, yeah, my sister passed away she had Down syndrome and got COVID and passed away like in the same time period. So having Julie have a lot of thought and feeling around stuff and then writing it down helps me to remember those times too. Yeah. And connect with the feelings myself. Is that what you're talking about, Jay?
That's what I was talking about. Yes, like that. Yes, it documented my mom, but that was also another significant thing that we just read that happened. So I wanted to make sure that was also named.
Well, and that is that let's go there for just a second, because that is one of the things about type 4 that is such a gift to the world, is that it's very priestly, right? It's remembering the story and bringing the story. And I have experienced that gift from Julie over and over and over again, just that ability to remember the details. And you might not necessarily, Julie, recognize that, but that is very much what I experienced from you too. And so that's where that linking and that chaining of all the memories can be challenging, because it takes time and effort, like it takes up time in real time. But it's literally holding the containment for the world, and that's such a gift of 4s. And then for type 2s are the guide. Like I just learned a new word for type 2s recently called the guide, instead of the host or the helper, but the guide, which is just that more, I think, that more self-aware type 2 is somebody who's really able to lead through, right? There's a reason people look to you, Steve, for leadership in moments, because that is inherently what you bring to the world as a type 2. And as type 9s, when we're not dissociated, which takes a lot of work for us to not be dissociated. Even I can feel us popping in and out because of all the preamble to this recording today. It's really a struggle to come present. But when we are here, type 9s tend to bring this multifaceted approach to life that has room for everybody and everything, and really can empathize with all journeys and welcomes all journeys. And so that feels like a good place to end.
Yeah, thank you, Petria. Thank you,
Jerry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Such a gift to be here.